So if you guys have any questions about intuitive fasting, my new book, if you have any questions about functional medicine or labs, and my friends just already, so we can and go live with Mr. Dave Asprey. Hi, Steph. Can't wait. Hey, friend.
Hey, how are you, Will?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing good. Do I have to call you Dr. Cole?
No, this is
I'm
no.
just messing with you.
Will's fine. Just yeah. And look, man. Our books are hanging out together.
They are indeed. Look at that, guys.
Thanks,
This
man.
is an awesome book, man. It actually just came in the mail. It takes a little while to get here. So I got my letter from Goop and Rodale, who's published some of my books. So yeah, I love it, man.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. I love yours as well. For people that are wondering, our books very close together. But thanks for taking the time out and talking with me today.
You got it. Thanks for having me on. I think the world of fasting is just coming into its own now, and it's so freeing to just realize that, oh, if I don't have breakfast, I'm not going to be hungry and hypoglycemic and all of that. And if you decide to have breakfast some of the time because you're tired, then that's okay too. And it's that not over fasting. That was something you nailed in intuitive fasting, and something that was one of the reasons I was motivated to write Fast This Way. It's like, I don't want people going to keto and like, yeah, I'm a keto bro. I go keto all the time. But then they get sick because it doesn't work. You have to go in and out and in and out. And with intuitive fasting, with intuitive eating, like, it's okay to fast. I do it often, but it doesn't have to be the same every day. And just because some fasting is good doesn't mean more is better, and that you'll know. So I think you nailed that. It's so important, and it's missing from a lot of the kind of, you must follow this schedule, guys.
Yeah, right, exactly. So you tell me about, I mean, I'm curious to know, as a writer and as an educator, what was the genesis of Fast This Way? Like what at what point were you like, yeah, this is what the book's going to look like, and I want the message to be this?
Well, my publisher reached out and said, Dave, we really need a good book on fasting. And I said, guys, look, I already wrote a good book on fasting. It's called The Bulletproof Diet. It came out in 2014. People lost 1 million pounds on it. It's in 16 languages, and it's still in the top 2,000 books on Amazon 7 years later because it works, right? Intermittent fasting has been a pillar of that. So I have 10 years of experience with people, like hundreds of thousands of people with intermittent fasting.
Yeah.
Do we need a new one? Because here's it. Step 1, don't eat for a while. Step 2, it's good for you. There's your book. And I don't write that book because that exists. And the good news is that's not intuitive fasting, and that's not Fast This Way, because it turns out the hard part about fasting isn't here's what you should do, here's why to do it. It's how to do it, right? That's what's because I'm not going to skip breakfast. I'll act like a jerk. That was what was going on with me. So I fasted in a cave for 4 days, led by a shaman. This is back in 2008. First time I ever did a 4-day fast, and it totally blew my mind. And it opened the door for me to do intermittent fasting with all the Bulletproof stuff that I've done for a while. And I wanted to share that story and just give people what it's like when you weigh 300 pounds, like the way I did, to understand this is what's going to happen in your brain. This is how to turn off the voice in your head that tells you to eat the donuts all the time. And that's why you fast. Weight loss is a side effect. You fast for this, so your brain feels great, better than it did when you had breakfast.
Yeah.
And that was worth writing. That's a high. It has to be worth. I'm not a good writer, and I shouldn't have published the book. So that was my mindset.
I love it. Do you feel like, I mean, it's something that I've experienced since it's only been a week since intuitive fasting's been out, but especially because I titled it Intuitive Fasting, and you and I both know what I was trying to get across is that you have like metabolic flexibility, when your blood sugar balanced and satiety signaling properly, you're rooted in your body. There is this innate intuition on, like you said, there's an effortlessness. It's not like we're being restrictive or being obsessive, but people conflate into intermittent fasting with starvation and with eating disorders. And I mean, what do you say for people that have that critique of intermittent fasting?
If you told someone to go to the gas station and you have to go there at the same time every day or every week, and you have to pump the same amount of gas every time, no matter if your tank is full or empty, you would say they were nuts. So the eating disorder that is plaguing the Western world is the idea that we need to eat 6 times a day, 3 meals plus snacks. It is fundamentally scientifically unhealthy. It's not okay. And at the same time, there are emotional eating disorders, right? They're a real thing and they're very serious. So you can't make light of those. But to say, when we teach people to actually eat when they're hungry and the benefits of having an empty stomach and allowing the body to heal itself, and we say, that's an eating disorder. No, the people who are telling you that's an eating disorder are fearful. They are not thinking, because the science is so abundant. We want to fix the inflammation problem. The fact that 88% of people in the US have early onset diabetes, this metabolic dysfunction. Intermittent fasting costs less than having breakfast, and it fixes the problem. It's this big of a thing. So how dare you call that an eating disorder? Like, get your priorities in order. That's all I can say.
I agree with you. It's so interesting that when we are talking about such a measured, flexible thing, that like it's called a fad or it's called restrictive. I think feeling like crap is restrictive.
Back when I weighed 300 pounds, before I was 30, I had really serious fatigue. I had chronic fatigue syndrome, fibromyalgia. I had cognitive dysfunction. I wouldn't have hired myself. I felt like I had the pedal pushed all the way to the ground all the time, and I was slowing down. And you can't push any harder because you're already tapped out. Yeah. And there are probably half the people listening to this have some degree of that in their life, and we all hide it. No one knew how much I was struggling with that, because why would you share that? That just means you're weak or something. And besides, people then think you're a whiner, right? But no, it's real. And when you get to the point where, wow, I'm going to eat so I have more energy than I ever did before, and that means that sometimes I take the energy that would have gone down to breaking up a steak in my stomach, and instead I'm going to use it to change out the dim bulbs in my cells and to make my brain work better. I want that. And it has absolutely been phenomenal for me. And I think less about food. One of the studies that I referenced that's right up your alley is the average person has 15% of their thoughts every day about their next meal. And if you're not thinking about your next meal because your body isn't worried that your stomach is empty, it actually likes it, then you get 15% of your thoughts back every day. And you can put them towards being a parent, towards doing something good in the world, towards exercise, towards watching TV. Like, they're your thoughts, but why think about donuts all the time? It's just not worth it.
Mm-hmm. Totally true. I see this agency that people get when they start getting metabolically more agile, and something that I call in intuitive fasting is food peace. Like, there's this peace that you see that if they're in control of food instead of food in being in control of them. That's really powerful. And I wish people got that. I think some people are just so committed to misunderstanding our message. Like, we aren't being advocating for people. This is not an eating disorder disguised as a wellness practice in any way.
It's really funny. My daughter is 13. And we feed our children so that they're full and they're not hungry. They have a healthy breakfast, eggs and pastured bacon from animals we raise on our own farm, stuff like that. And I had her most of the way to school, which is a reasonable distance away, this morning. And she says, "Oh, Daddy, I left my lunch on the table." I said, "Well, you're going to be late for school, but normally we don't go back. But since we're not all the way to school, I'll go back and get it." And she goes, "I won't be hungry anyway. I'll be fine if I don't have lunch. I'll just have lunch when I get home." And she was totally at peace with it. She's 13. She just wasn't, there was no, what am I going to do? Man, I would have lost it when I was 13 from that. But part of that isn't, we don't teach our kids to fast. My son has tried it once because he wanted to, not because we asked him to. And he's 11. He did it when he was, I think, 9. But what's happening there is, when you learn how to eat so that you're not hungry all the time, you have a greater sense of peace, a greater sense of agency. And then if it's time to skip a meal because it's convenient or just because you forgot your lunch, it's not the end of the world. And you know it in your heart, you know it in your gut, and you know it in your mind, and the body doesn't freak out. I never had that. It's like, if I don't eat, I'll turn into a jerk, and then I'll get fat because you have to eat 6 times a day or you go into starvation mode in your body. That's garbage thinking. It just, what? You have to eat more to lose weight. Okay. But I believe in it. Most people do.
Right. Totally. I know people are asking us in the comment section to answer questions. So are you up for that?
I love answering questions.
All right, cool. I'm going to use a little question here. So guys, get your questions ready because Dave and I can talk about this stuff. All right, this is a good question that I get asked a lot. I'll pull it up in this way. I think that's what they were asking. This got asked a lot in the comment section, and I saw this. Hitting adrenal healing. So some people were asking in the comment section what they hear online, that adrenal fatigue, or people that have HPA axis issues or cortisol issues shouldn't fast. What say the king of fasting?
I have had stage 4 adrenal fatigue. I've had chronically low cortisol for a good portion of my life, and I've had very high cortisol for a good portion of my life. So I've lived this. The first myth about adrenal fatigue is that you shouldn't have coffee. Cortisol is a circadian hormone. That means it changes with time of day. If you are low cortisol, like I was, you will have the worst day of your life if you wake up with low cortisol. So it's okay to have 1 cup of coffee in the morning with salt, which helps you get your circadian rhythm for cortisol reestablished. Mm-hmm. And that works. Doing that all day long, not a good idea. Switch to decaf after that, but you can do a cup. And there's different types of fasting. And one of them is a water-only fast. I don't think that's a great idea, but you can fast with butter and MCT oil and coffee. I mean, I know a guy who invented that kind of thing. But if you're having some MCT oil during a fast, that's also known as Bulletproof coffee. If you guys are new to my work, it's kind of a famous thing. You can actually have enough energy. So cortisol goes up when there's not enough energy in the body. But what we're working to get your body to do is to become better at regulating blood sugar and better at burning fat. So if you have a little bit of fat that goes directly to energy, MCT oil cannot be stored as fat. So then the energy crisis that would have caused the cortisol spike and made you feel like crap, it's not going to be there. And so it's a gentler way of fasting. And you can also take prebiotic fiber during a fast, which is one of the hacks that's in my book and one I think that is in alignment with what you're talking about. And I don't know if you covered that. I haven't finished intuitive fasting, but I just know from your medical side, prebiotics are good for you, right?
Yeah, I did not cover it the way that you did, and I really think it's very important information. So yeah, talk about it.
You can do that. When you do this, it has very little flavor, and you put it in any kind of liquid, you drink it, your body can't digest the carbs. But your gut bacteria, the healthy ones that actually can help you heal from adrenal fatigue, they eat it and they turn it into something called butyric acid, which basically reduces inflammation throughout the body and gives you more ketones. The reason you want ketones is ketones, which come from burning fat. If you're fasting for a longer period of time or you intermittent fast every day for a few days, you start getting more and more ketones. But you can also add them with MCT oil. And when that happens, ketones are directly anti-inflammatory. And if your adrenals are wrecked, then you actually need more anti-inflammatory compounds and more energy in the body. So that would be my approach. You also don't need to be in keto if you're in adrenal fatigue. When you do eat, have some carbs, just don't have sugar, and you're going to heal.
Mm-hmm. Well said. Well said. I agree totally. All right. This is another question here. All right. This is a good one. You probably get asked this a lot too. This is
what do you think? I want to hear your answer.
Does celery juice break your fast? So people ask me what my thoughts are on celery juice all the time. I think it's fine if people want to have it. It's I don't know if it cures all the things that are supposed, that.
Come on, Will. Can we call a spade a spade?
Yeah. What do you?
Celery juice has got good minerals in it. It's got a special kind of water called exclusions on water. You can also get that by blending fat and water. Even a few drops of MCT blended water will give you the same kind of water. And so it's got good potassium, good sodium, very low calories. It probably won't break a fast, but I'm just going to be really straightforward. There is no evidence and no known pathway that celery juice reduces, treats, or cures type 2 diabetes. That is a fantasy. It is not real. Is it good for you? Probably. It's just not going to do that. We have to fix the fat in our cell membranes. Mm-hmm. We have too much omega-6 seed oils that has broken our ability to absorb nutrients into our cells and to make a lot of energy. So yeah, have your celery juice if you want to spend a lot of money on celery and clean up your juicer. And it tastes good and it's delicious and it's nice. It probably won't break your fast, but come on, curing diabetes with celery juice, you can do better. Intermittent fasting without or with celery juice is a much better strategy.
Yeah, I agree with you. Said it very eloquently. I think that if it makes your fast easier, I think almost especially at the beginning if you're new to intermittent fast.
Do it.
Yeah, exactly. All right, here is another question. Okay. Oh, this is a good one. This is a really good one for you. Why does MCT oil cause upset stomach?
Oh, I love this question. It turns out there's no such thing as MCT oil. MCT oil is actually 4 different types of oil that are all legally allowed to be called MCT, and they each do different things. And I've been trying to get the labeling fixed on this. The cheapest and most abundant MCT oil actually doesn't have any superpowers. It's called lauric acid. And the other 3, one of them is the 6 chain is very rough on the gut. And then there's the C8, which is what I use for Bulletproof. And then there's C10. And it turns out that when you make MCT oil, you get odd chain oils. These are byproducts of breaking down coconut. I triple distilled the MCT oil, and we only use the 8 chain, which is the rarest and most expensive. That raises ketones more, and people don't get the stomach issues with that you get from normal MCTs, which are not triple distilled and contain there's C17 and C23. So it's a purity issue, first and foremost. And secondly, if you have issues with bile, or you just use a lot of any oil, if you were to take, a half a cup of canola oil on an empty stomach, you're going to have a similar effect. Yeah. So it's a purity issue from what I've seen, and it's a composition issue. Mm-hmm. So we probably had a 80% reduction in comments about that from using the brain octane, the triple distilled, clay filtered, all that kind of stuff. Before that, in the very early days of Bulletproof, when I didn't even have an MCT oil on the market yet, we were trying to find something. People would drink it, their throats would burn, and they're like, I feel so good, but I'm in the bathroom half the day. That's an MCT oil quality problem. They're not all the same.
Got it. Yeah, I love the brain octane. I use it all the time.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, of course. I'm going to go right into the comment section. Thank you guys for, there's so many questions that people are asking. But some other ones that I wanted to clear up here. Please address fasting regarding thyroid, specifically Hashimoto's. What's your thoughts on that?
It is really good for any autoimmune condition. I actually have Hashimoto's. I was diagnosed when I was 26 with it, and I've been on thyroid hormone ever since. Many people who are tired have subclinical hypothyroidism. Their levels are low, but they have all the symptoms, and they do so much better when they get on thyroid. It's life-changing. Like, it turns the lights back on. And if you have Hashimoto's, during the time when your stomach is empty, all of the enzymes that would have been breaking down protein in your food are available to break down protein that's in your blood. And the autoimmune molecules, their IG molecules, can actually get broken down by those enzymes. So over time, fasting can help with a lot of autoimmune conditions. Just make sure that you take your thyroid medication. You can take it when you wake up, even on an empty stomach, it'll still work.
Yeah, I 100% agree. We are in sync, man. We are in sync.
Yeah, you do good work, man.
Thank you. You too. All right. This is another question that I get asked a lot. Do mushroom extracts and powder, do those type of supplements, like lion's mane, break a fast?
I saw the studies in the early days of Bulletproof on lion's mane, and I was so excited, and it doesn't seem to do anything when you take powder. But in order to liberate the molecules that actually work, it requires a hot extract and an alcohol extract. So I use from a company called Life Cycle. It's an Australian species of lion's mane, and I can measure a doubling or tripling of my REM sleep when I take that before bed. The powders, though, are mostly the roots of the mushroom, and they don't have a big effect, but they do have a reasonable amount of carbohydrate. So I feel like you're not getting it very well if you're using a powder, but if you're using a high quality double extracted liquid like the Life Cycle stuff, that you do get benefits from it. One of the things that fasting does is it raises a really important compound that's been at the center of biohacking forever called BDNF, or brain-derived nootropic factor. This is the juice that makes your brain build synapses like a young brain. So if you want neuroplasticity and you don't want Alzheimer's and all the other things that happen as you age in your brain, keep your BDNF high. Fasting does it, exercise does it, lion's mane does it. So yeah, it's totally good to do that. And I do every night when I'm fasted, before I go to bed, I take the lion's mane Life Cycle. You can put it in your coffee as well if you don't mind a little alcohol taste.
Cool. Love that. This is a question about branched chain amino acids. To maintain lean muscle, burn fat while fasting or exercise, or should they skip it?
Skip it. You take it at the end of the fast. BCAAs break a fast. And there's 2 hallmarks of fasting to really understand. And I feel like I'm talking with you, so like I'm preaching to the choir, as much as I do here. But just in terms of educating your audience.
Totally.
There's a compound called mTOR in the body. And this is the grow mode compound for all tissues in the body. And when you fast, you suppress mTOR. When you exercise, you suppress mTOR. And when you drink coffee, you suppress mTOR. And the good thing about suppressing mTOR is that when it comes back with a vengeance. It's like a spring. You're smashing, smashing, smashing. So at the end of your fast, do a few squats. It doesn't have to be that big of a workout. You could do a real workout if you want to. And then you eat. And then you have your BCAAs. And then you have your protein. And protein, BCAAs, and carbs all spike mTOR. So all of a sudden, you just gave it the signal to grow muscle, and then you spiked mTOR, and you got all the benefits. You put on your muscle more quickly than you would have, and then you start fasting again, and your mTOR goes back down. People with low mTOR most of the time live longer because we don't get cancer. People with high mTOR all the time, like I'm swole, you're probably at higher risk for cancer from that. If you eat protein all the time, like every 6 times a day, the way you would as a bodybuilder, it does increase cancer risk. So what we're doing is saying when you have your protein, fast and do a little bit of exercise right before you eat, and the results are insane.
Yeah, 100%. Again, on the same wavelength for sure. This is a question I also get asked a lot. I haven't had mushrooms since healing from mold toxicity. So do I continue to avoid? People are conflating mushrooms with mold toxicity.
Well, many people, and I've had very strong mold toxicity. I have a free documentary, moldymovie.com, which it's free just because people need to know how big of a problem it is. This is environmental mold. And it's 100 million buildings in the US have mold growing that's toxic for humans. Like we can do better. So people who've recovered, most people with Lyme disease actually have mold poisoning as well, or instead of Lyme, but there's a lot of confusion there. So you're much more likely to have candida, which is an issue in and of itself. This is a yeast that grows. It's most famous for causing yeast infections in women, but it grows in the gut in a lot of people. And mushrooms will make that worse. So for people who've had mold, in general, eating mushrooms as a major food source is probably not a good idea. Using mushrooms medicinally is a really good idea. Mm-hmm. So I would say a little bit of caution there. There are even some studies of even like white button mushrooms increasing smooth cell proliferation. So mushrooms are a very interesting food. They're necessary for our environment. And I think there are some safe ones, but some of the more exotic ones or some of the less studied ones, you might want to be a little bit cautious there unless your body's running at full strength. So it's not a hard no. It's be suspicious. If you don't feel good, don't do it.
Yeah. Totally.
You agree with that?
Oh, yeah, I definitely do.
Okay.
I think medicinally, and like you said, I've seen good success with increased brain output if someone's struggling with brain fog during their when they're recovering from mold toxicity. But yeah, I would agree. Overdoing it could be problematic. So let me get here. Oh, this is another good question. Fasting while trying to gain weight. So what if you're underweight or you're trying to gain weight? Should you fast?
Yeah. You might not want to fast for quite as long. You might make it 14 or 16, not 18 hours. And do the mTOR stacking thing I talked about, right? Lift right before you eat and then eat a good amount and don't do keto. You can do a high fat, but do high protein as well. And you also want carbs and not sugar, but rice, sweet potatoes, stuff like that. And if you are eating enough calories, even a little bit more calories than you need, you're going to make better use of those calories because of mTOR than otherwise. But do you want to do 24-hour fast twice a week if you're trying to gain weight? Probably not.
Yeah.
That's the whole intuitive side of fasting that you talk about.
Yeah. Yeah. And I would say too, and I'd like to echo what you said, as I have a lot of patients that are underweight where we're doing moderate fast, like nothing extreme, like you mentioned, no OMAD fast over repeat, but a moderate time restricted feeding with clean eating is that they, as their gut starts to heal and repair, they're able to digest foods better and absorb nutrients better. And beta hydroxybutyrate, the ketone, is muscle sparing too. So I have patients that are underweight start to actually gain muscle mass and have like that. They don't look so gaunt anymore. And it's counterintuitive to people because they think, how could you do that? But you're actually repairing the body over time.
You are repairing the body over time. And I'm going to put a little plug in for some grass-fed butter or some egg yolks from pastured eggs. Mm-hmm. You've got to get some saturated fat in there if you're underweight. Not because saturated fat makes you gain weight, but because it's a stable building block for cell membranes. And a lot of people are underweight. There's something metabolic that has been going on. You should probably get a thyroid test if it really won't budge. Make sure you don't have too much thyroid hormone.
Yeah.
And You also should look at your hormone levels around testosterone, whether you're a man or a woman. If that's low, that could explain it.
Yeah.
I had less testosterone than my mom when I was in my 20s. So
That'll wake you up
yeah.
to doing something. All right, this is a good question, and then maybe this will be our last question. So here we go. How to prevent hair falling while fasting.
Yes. Do you want to take that one? You want me to take it? All right.
Well, you go for it. Yeah, I'll go around.
Okay. Yeah, tell me where you disagree or give me some more knowledge. I'm always looking to learn. Okay. What I've found is that humans will do this. If something is good, more of it's better. And this has already happened in the keto world. You know, my Bulletproof Diet Keto book's like, guys, you have to go in, go out. Do not be in keto for more than a couple of weeks. Ideally, even just go in and out, because you can do this for a long term. And now you've got the keto bros going around. If you eat another carb, you're a bad person. And that whole thing, it doesn't work that way. And women, they'll hit the keto wall or the fasting wall before men. And the first sign is sleep quality goes down. The second sign for women, this is usually 4 to 6 weeks of over fasting. Then they get a problem with their monthly cycle. It gets dysregulated. And then they start getting thinning hair because their cortisol levels are high, because they actually are entering the realm of starvation, which is not what fasting is supposed to be. Men usually take 6 to 8 weeks. Sleep quality goes down. Then they wake up without a kickstand, and then they get thinning hair. So what you want to do is, at a minimum, look at having some sea salt in the morning, some adrenal extract in the morning, and focusing on shortening your fasting window and having more good quality protein. And I'm going to put a plug in for my favorite protein that I made famous called collagen protein. Bulletproof makes a good one. It should be grass-fed, but that really supports hair growth very effectively. But what's going on here is you have too much cortisol because you fasted too much, or when you broke your fast, you weren't eating the right stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And other components that I've seen clinically is people, mainly women, that are cycling, menstruating, that they are cycling, they're fasting too much too soon because they think more is better. And in the short term, they see that honeymoon period, so they think, oh, great, because they've brought leptin down, inflammation levels coming down, their gut supported, insulin sensitivity is improved, all that good stuff. But more isn't always better long term. And kind of what Dave was saying here is that a cyclical approach around your cycle, increasing those clean carbohydrates around your period and around ovulation, I find that at that point, you've leveraged the amazing benefits most of the month of intermittent fasting. You just lighten up on certain times of your cycle. And you're making sure when you're breaking your fast, you're focusing on these clean carbohydrates specifically around certain aspects of your cycle that will support progesterone and support T4 to T3 conversion too. Because you'll see that slightly lower T3 levels.
Mm-hmm.
You know a lot about this, of course, but that's not always a bad thing. I see some slightly T3 levels and the person feels fine. They're more metabolically flexible. That's fantastic. But you always have to put that in context. Sometimes that lower T3 is just too low for that person. And the clean carb cycling can help mitigate that tremendously.
It can. I have a question for you.
Yeah.
There's a couple people in the fasting community saying, oh yeah, women should fast during their period, same as always. What's your take on that?
It depends on what she's going through, right? I think all women are different. And
yes.
If people learn nothing else but that in today's Instagram Live, it's that all women are different. And that, is she going through PCOS, endometriosis, adenomyosis, insulin resistance, metabolic issues, different neurological inflammatory problems? She could be menstruating, she could be cycling, but fasting's going to interplay with her biochemistry so much different than someone that's prone to lower thyroid, that's underweight, that's maybe super stressed out, or she's not sleeping well. That latter example is she's going to not want to be fasting so much the same way throughout her cycle. But many people that are cycling, and they do fine with the same type of fast throughout their cycle, but they're typically going through some pretty significant insulin resistance, and the benefit of the fast is outweighing any detriment to progesterone.
Yeah. And everyone's different, and the idea, you might want to do a shorter fast during your period. And if you're really just feeling wrecked, you might actually feel better having some protein in the morning, and just that it's okay, right? So you don't have to fast during your period, and it's a time when it's likely you'll want to do a shorter one, and you may be just fine. But if you kind of have to roll the dice, and until you know your biology and you've tried fasting during a rough period, and then, well, okay, that worked or that didn't work, you'll know.
Yeah.
But I look at that as a place to experiment and see what works for you, because for a lot of women, the stress is already too high. And then fasting is an added stressor. And for other women, it's okay. And it doesn't do that.
Yeah. Something that you've said, you said it in the Bulletproof book, I think years ago when I read it, but it's like, try these things out, experiment for a month, and then don't mix too many experiments at the same time, because you want to check in with your body, check in with your energy, check in with your sleep, check in with your goals, and see where you're at. We're all different, and there's so many interconnected confluence of factors that all of these things are based on our clinical experience, our personal experience, but ultimately, you should be your own N of 1 experiment.
I couldn't agree more, and that's why Intuitive Fasting is such a good book, because we put it out there. And guys, if someone tells you you have to fast for this number of hours or this many days per week, they are wrong. Like, that's just how it is, right? You can choose your fast every single day based on your state, and they're all okay.
Yeah.
Right. And if we can just get that into the world of fasting, it'll be something we do forever. I just interviewed Margaret Paul, who's 91, on my show on Bulletproof Radio. She's been fasting intermittent fasting, for 59 years. And she looks like she's 60. And it's pretty incredible what happens when you do this over time, but you have to find a way to do it that will work for decades, not for 2 weeks.
Yes.
And that's the trick.
Yeah. Well said. I think it's a great way to end. Thank you, my friend, for taking the time.
You got it, man. Thanks for your book. It's a great book. You guys should order this. And if you haven't ordered either one, order them both. And then Amazon will see that they belong together. And you guys already know this probably, but if you tip a barista, you should also leave a review for an author. So when you like Will's book, go to Amazon, take 10 seconds to leave a 5-star review and say why you like the book. And it'll actually help many other people find out that it's a good book.
Thank you. Likewise for Fast This Way. I love it. My team loves it. Some of my team are on right now, and they love your book so much.
Nice.
Thanks,
man.
Fans within the functional medicine clinic, for sure.
Keep doing what you're doing. Have an awesome evening.
Likewise. See you. Talk soon.
Bye.
Bye.